Hey everyone, this is Nathan of Hey Poor Player, and I'm giving you a review of Cossacks 3. Cossacks 3, as described by its developer GSC Game World, is an RTS game that harkens back to the golden age of the genre. This is more or less true because Cossacks 3 is a remake of 2001's Cossacks European War, but with an updated graphics engine. The game sets its scope in 17th and 18th century European warfare with many playable nations to rise your way to the top through resource management and army building. While this game looks to appeal old RTS veterans, is this enough to make this game stand out in a modern context? I enjoy playing real-time strategy games, but by no means am I a veteran or particularly skilled in this genre. Without taking up too much time, here's my thoughts on Cossacks 3. As mentioned earlier, Cossacks 3 is a remake, with the main difference being an update to the graphical fidelity of the game. The game's performance visually is very solid, running at a constant 60 frames per second despite the amount of clutter on screen at a given time. The design of each exclusive unit and building to each of the nations that are playable is very well done, and the animations for the units are very solid. This is a nice touch considering that in an RTS game you are more than likely to be zoomed out so far that you can't see individual units more than likely. Unfortunately, the special units and buildings for each nation is the only real charming thing about the game. While the game is objectively solid, it doesn't do much to stick itself out from the competition, and this is especially true of the environments. The terrain for the most part never really looks different despite the map being randomly generated in multiplayer and random play, so you will see the same bland green environment a lot through your playthroughs. It doesn't help that things such as fauna and geological objects feel very underwhelming and flat, which isn't a big deal in an RTS, but when you're seeing the same bland green environment over and over again, it kinda would help to have some nuance or things that pop out in the map. So while Cossacks 3 does look objectively solid as a whole, it lacks charm in its common units, UI, and its environment. There's a lot of charm to be found in the exclusive units and the buildings, but that's pretty much it. Cossacks 3 has a decently steep learning curve, not uncommon in RTS games of this era. Despite that, the game's basic mechanics aren't too hard to learn after a few random map games, and if you've played games of a similar nature, you're more than likely fine. I wouldn't recommend playing the tutorial of the game because of how horribly paced it is due to the game's mechanic. First tutorial took me around half an hour to complete, and that was mostly due to how slow everything moved, which is a weird juxtaposition to how relatively fast it is to create units early on. Overall, learning the game isn't that bad. It is by no means the hardest RTS to pick up and learn, but it does take some finesse to get things down in a timely and efficient manner. As far as strategy games go, this game is a pretty standard affair of collecting resources, building and amassing an army, and then killing things. There are several things that make Cossacks 3 stand out gameplay-wise, but the biggest is choosing the formation of your units. Essentially, you can choose the formation of a specific unit type to whatever fits your needs for the battle. While this is a very cool feature, it can be clunky because of the way the UI is set up and the overall messy nature of setting up ranks. And unfortunately, in single player, it hardly does anything to change the tide of war too much because of the incompetent AI. This is my biggest problem with the game because the AI doesn't provide much challenge at all. As long as you know the basics of what unit counters each other, you can pretty much beat any AI at any difficulty with little to no problem. Pumping up the game difficulty doesn't do much to incite challenge because the AI more or less stays the same. The only thing that really changes is the amount of units it seems to spawn, which isn't challenging, and it's just a cheap way of making the game more quote-unquote difficult. A lot of this though is mitigated in multiplayer. All the gameplay mechanics that get reduced because of a crappy AI is mitigated when you're fighting an intelligent opponent. Unit formations, economy management, and micro decisions actually become important, and that's when the game becomes really fun. Multiplayer is where the game shines, and so far I have no complaints with the online play other than a few glitches and disconnects on my opponent's part. However, while that does solve the AI problem, it still doesn't solve the problem of a clunky UI, grindy late game, and unit imbalances. While Cossacks 3 does have cool ideas, the execution is less than great most of the time. And unfortunately, it seems that this comes from the fact that the game is a remake of a 2001 title. I played Cossacks 3 for hours, and throughout my playtime, the main issue that kept coming up was whenever the game started to become fun, I realized how lukewarm the overall experience was. Unfortunately, a pretty new graphics engine and solid multiplayer doesn't hide the old mechanics, average visuals, and lack of charm overall. This is definitely for only the most dedicated of Cossacks fans and who are nostalgic for a time when RTSs were way more prominent. Just because this game is a remake and a modestly priced one doesn't excuse a forgettable average experience. The golden age of the genre the GSC game world describes in its description of the game is a time long gone, and nostalgia nor an average game isn't enough to bring it back. With all that being said, I give Cossacks 3 a 3 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see the full written review, feel free to click the link down below. Also, if you want to see more content, feel free to like the video and to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to see other reviews, news, and etc., feel free to check out the Hey Poor Player website. Again, thank you for watching and have a good day.